I listened to the Rebbe's Maamar, so more or less I remember more or less said, I understand a little bit what he said. Then when Reb Yoel said chazara, what's a Shabbos, you write down details, you write down kitzurim of what the Rebbe said, and then you sit down to write it down. You use both. You use what you remember, and you use the notes, which are short notes, and together.
Today's episode is brought to you by Machane Yisrael. There's a very special Torah being commissioned right now, and stay tuned a little bit later for more details about how you can be a part of it. I'm Yossi Kamen. Welcome to Among Chassidim by Der Herr, an ongoing farbrengen about life as a chassid, our vibrant connection with the Rebbe, and inspired living shaped by the way he teaches us each and every day. How are you, Rabbi Olidort?
Baruch Hashem.
Thank you so much for being here.
Always happy to help.
Okay, I appreciate that. I would like to begin and ask you if you can talk a little bit about your upbringing, where you came from. I know you're not born in these parts and not born in Eretz Yisrael, so you have a unique story. So maybe you can share that with me a little bit.
Well, I was born in Russia, in the suburb of Moscow, in Tafshin Yud Zayin. My parents were all but obviously there, and I lived in Moscow, that suburb until Oder, actually it was Zayin Oder, Tafshin Lachov Zayin. That's when he moved from Moscow to Seoul. To talk more about background of my family, my father came from a family from Ukraine. His parents, his father was a Sver Chassid, and they ran away during World War II, evacuated from Ukraine, from Odessa, well in the east, and they ended up being around Tashkent, in that area. And that's when my father was then around Bar Mitzvah age. So that's when my father was introduced to Chabad, because there were Chabad Chadorim Cheder Chabad ran in that area. It was the only frum environment. So that's what my grandfather sent my father to study there under Chabad, and that's how my father became a chassid, together with a lot of people that area, from that era, that were introduced to Chabad and became close to Chabad. I mean, a big chunk of them moved in the famous echelons here to the Western world, but also Chosh v'Chelik stayed in Russia. My father stayed in Russia
Because they weren't able to leave?
They weren't able to leave. Yeah, to leave was a process. Not everybody was not able. There were reasons why they could. A lot of them came later. We all know that a lot of them came later. And then my father and his family moved to Siberia because the government, his sister studied there, and the government sent her to work in a factory in Siberia. Then later he came to Moscow, in the area of Moscow that has a lot of frum families there, a big part of them Chabad families. And then that's when he met my mother, also came, one of her relatives lived in that area.
What type of family is she from?
She came from a frum family in Odessa, from I think Chassidim of Ruzhin, of Buyan. And that's when they met, and that's why I was born there. And my grandfather, my father's father, who was already retired, I mean, he wasn't that old, but he was already retired at that point, he is the one who taught me everything. He taught me from Aleph Beis till Gemara.
You didn't go to Cheder or anything?
There was no Cheder.
Moscow, no Cheder?
No, there was no Cheder in Moscow. So I was homeschooled in Yiddish, in Jewish stuff, and Jewish studies by my grandfather. He taught me everything, like I said, from Aleph Beis till Gemara, till I was 9.5. And I was quite young when I was in Russia, but my memories are, we had in our little suburb of Moscow, we had our minyan, we had a minyan Shabbosim, most of everybody was very old timers. I was the only child there. My cousin, my father's sister and husband, they also lived there with my grandparents. So their children, but they were all old. My cousins were older than me. And we used to have a minyan der Shabbosim. And if I remember correctly, I was once mashlim a minyan with a chumash, mashu kazeh. Simchas Torah Tafshin Chav Zayin, my last Simchas Torah there, I got maftir, age 9. I got maftir. It's a funny memory I have from the past.
Well, you know how to read it, no?
I'm telling you, my grandfather taught me everything. So, Gemara, not just like Ivre, Chumash, Mishnah is Gemara. Then my father also learned Mila and Shchita in order to help in that area. In that era again, it was a time when there wasn't enough of Fum people. All our Fum families used to get together.
Were they Lubavitcher Chassidim?
Pardon, Lubavitcher Chassidim. Pardon, not Lubavitcher Chassidim.
So anyone was organizing these activities, or was all?
It was all. Yeah, it was. I don't know. Yeah, there was some kind of organization. I remember also there was a main shul in Moscow, the big shul in the city. The chief rabbi was Rabbi Levin. Remember, I think, going with my father there, and he gave us, I think it was a siddur, a small siddur, Tiras Hashem, and Naim Yom. I think they used to get it to the Israeli embassy there.
He's the one that came later to the Rebbe.
Right, he came later to the Rebbe. I mean, from the Greenberg family, obviously, and Rabbi Greenberg from Alaska. His older brother Naftali was my age, and he had cousins. He had his grandfather, Rabbi Baron Chazan, and was other families.
Were there any like notable chassidim that came around that you remember?
A lot of names that I remember. I don't know how to describe notable chassidim, but there are a lot of names from that era. I remember Rebbe Yoel Kahan, who was he was in the city. He lived in the city.
Where is the suburb?
There was a suburb of Moscow, but now it became already part of the city.
What's the name? The
name was Klazma. I remember there was also the Machnevka Rebbe, who was a Rebbe from the Chernobyl dynasty, which, like I said, my grandfather was also like originally a chassid of Skver, which was also Chernobyl dynasty. So the Machnevka Rebbe had his own shul in the city of Moscow. I remember going there a few times. Later, he moved to Bnei Brak, and we moved to Bnei Brak too. And not only that, he was also my sandik, actually. My grandfather wanted him to be my sandik. It was considered chshivas to have a Rebbe to be okay, so that's step one. Another small part is that first grade public school, you must go to public school in Russia. In Russia, those days at least, Shabbos was also, school was 6 days a week, including Shabbos. And because our school was a small school, so Friday, our class is to learn the afternoon. So in the short Fridays was also a problem. So as far as Shabbos, we got some doctor to write a note that I need an extra day off. But Fridays was an issue. The winter Fridays. Sometimes I always looked for excuses. One day they didn't let me leave, so I made a little. I acted upset and this and that, and they got me some help. It's funny. I mean, in my memory, when I experienced it, it was obviously bad. But looking back, it was a little incident.
Was it like? How was it to be a minority of a minority, a yid, from a yid? Like
so we used to, for example, you can see that. For example, I used to wear a yarmulke, right? So in class, I think I had to take. I'm not sure if in class maybe I had to take off the yarmulke, but in the street I had to break yarmulke. I couldn't wear a regular Jewish yarmulke. So You can see that the Uzbek goyim, they have this big head covering called tebeteka. That's what it's called in Russian. So I used to walk around with that in Russia. Some people today you can see it. Some people do it still. In it's some. Hard. Life was hard. So I was taunted as a Jew, obviously, but I remember I was sitting in public school. It was mixed. So I mixed times up a little bit. The beginning was that the first grade, somehow my father managed to get me out of the first grade. But the second grade, I had to go. They forced us to go. So all these things happened. I remember there was some girl there. She says, "I'm not Jewish. My both grandparents are Jewish, but I'm not." She told me. Stop. Memory. It turns out later on she moved to Israel, after 40 years later, 30 years later.
Right. So she's
I don't know anything about her. My mother told me about it. So that's step one, Shlav Aleph. Shlav Beis was that, like I said, Chav Zayin, Baruch Hashem, we moved to Eretz Yisrael. It was a process. They rejected us.
I have a question before that.
Sure.
Was there as you knew that you were a Lubavitcher chassid?
Yeah, that's why I wanted to talk about it. I told you. So I davened Nusach Tilas Hashem. My grandfather was a Kfar chassid, davened Nusach Tzfaret. So I felt there was also all the relatives we had. There were also relatives of the Greenbergs who were also Polish chassidim. So they used to daven Nusach Tzfaret, they used to daven Nusach Chabad. There was a little stickle friction even. As children, we're talking about small children. It wasn't a serious friction, but it was obvious that we said. I remember even having a minyan Shabbos Mevorachim for Tehillim. Mm-hmm. As a child, I remember once we wanted to make Tehillim Shabbos Mevorachim, so people walked to our house Shabbos afternoon to have a minyan Shabbos Mevorachim.
And your father was part of this.
Of course, yeah. My father is the one. I mean, he's not the only one. He taught me to daven the Nusach Harizal and in all the whatever minhagim they had there. I think I remember him also. So yeah.
You knew anything about the Rebbe?
I don't. The honest truth is I don't recall exactly, but probably they said something about a Rebbe. I was young and I don't remember. I personally don't remember that, but I assume that the older people were more about that.
Interesting. Okay. So Tafshel Chav Zayin, the decision that you have to get out of there.
No, the decision's not mine. My parents. So they asked to be released, and they were rejected twice, till finally somehow consider it a miracle. That I remember I once met. In Moscow, later, I met the Israeli ambassador to Moscow. She says, I came out of Russia in 1967, also Chav Zayin. I said, really? She said, according to statistics, in that year, only 1,000 people left Russia to Israel. So I was one of 1,000.
So it is a miracle.
Yeah, it is quite a miracle. She knew the statistics. She also came out that year. I was surprised. Okay, now so
you went to Eretz Yisrael?
Yeah, we got out to Eretz Yisrael with my family, and at the beginning we moved to Bnei Brak because our relatives, my mother's cousin, the closest relatives my mother had, that was her cousin, so we stayed with them in Bnei Brak. We rented a place in Bnei Brak, and that was other Tafshel Chav Zayin. Then Pesach, Chalamayit Pesach Tafshel Chav Zayin, we took a trip to Yerushalayim to see from far. It was before 6-Day War. So we went up some mountain, I think, to see from far parts of Har HaBayis or Mashu Kazeh. It was a whole trip. It was a major trip. And then so when I came there, I went to Chabad Cheder right away. So there was a Cheder Chabad, a very small Cheder. There's a picture, actually. There's around a picture because some kid over there had a birthday or something. So there's a picture. A lot of people there that Chashev mentioned that day. Like Zalman Lando, Chaim Shlomo Diskin, and I'll see. Maybe Yosk is also in that picture. And my Malamed was Zalman Leba Stulin. And it was exciting because, first of all, Zamlei Basuni was also my father's Melamed in Russia in the 40s. So I had the same Melamed. And also, if I remember correctly, when Zamlei Basuni left Russia about half a year before us, but he came from Uzbekistan, from Tashkent. So on the way to leave Russia, he went to Moscow. So he stayed in my grandparents' house. So I remember I saw him already before. I remember I learned about Kama, and I'm surprised at myself how good my grandfather managed to teach me.
You're up to the level.
I was up to the level. I was able to follow. It's not like a person comes out of nowhere. And I didn't learn, till then I never learned in a cheder. So I mean, that really, I have to credit my grandfather for that. And so we learned for 3 months there. So we were there for a few months. And my father was looking for a job, looking for a house. Then the 6-day war started. In Iyar Tovshin Chavzayin, right? Iyar Tovshin Chavzayin, I remember during the war, we came to Cheder. The Cheder is closed, so we had to run to a special underground place. I think it was under one of the shuls. Orlando, Zalman Lando was our classmate, so his grandfather, Bianca Lando, arranged the place. I think maybe it's not exactly, it's not Shukazeh. But in Bnei Brak, he didn't feel anything, he didn't hear anything. So right after that, the Yerushalayim became a place, so the government offered my father a place, apartment in Yerushalayim, not area. For free, but there was a special program, area on the old border with, in other words, before the war, it was Mamash on the border of Yerushalayim and Jordan, of Israel and Jordan. So they offered him a place there, and my father wanted to live in Yerushalayim. So right away, we moved to Yerushalayim, the base Tammuz Tavshin Chav Zayin. And the first day, obviously, the first time in Yerushalayim, we came there and we met the Chabad people there. We went as a farbrengens Chabad in Yerushalayim, the shul, the base Tammuz Chav Zayin. I was still 9 years old, like I said. And we got to know the few Chabad people, important Chabad people. There was Tuvia Bloy, which became a good friend of my father. And I also used to give later. He used to give shurim in his home in Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch for children. Like I remember going there, and there was also the maniach of the cheder. Then was Reb Shalom Leib Eisenbach, Alav Shalom, who was later he moved to Montreal. So he had a strong effect. He was my melamed there in the beginning. He was also the maniach, was the melamed. So that's I already started in a regular Chabad cheder Yerushalayim. For a few years after him, I had the Menachem Wilhelm, and a lot of important people. And then later, I had my bar mitzvah Tovshin Lamed. So that was the first bar mitzvah in Tzemach Tzedek Shul. Tzemach Tzedek Shul was renewed, in the old city. Tzemach Tzedek Shul in the old city, it was still some old they turned it into a factory.
You're saying
the Arabs,
when it was under...
Exactly, when the Arabs turned it into a factory, and then Chabad took it over. So it was being rebuilt, and they finally finished the downstairs. It should be able to make it simcha there. So I think it was the first bar mitzvah Tovshin Lamed in Tzemach Tzedek Shul. And then at that point we moved from the cheder was in Shikon Chabad, which was the shul is now. We have the Yerushalayim downstairs the Chabad shul. And then we moved to yeshiva. The yeshiva Teras Semes was then on Chav Meir Shorim, the end of Chav Meir Shorim near Breslev. You're familiar?
No, I'm not so familiar, but yeah.
Not familiar. Okay, so it's the end of Chav Meir Shorim. And that's what I was from Tovshin Lamed till Tovshin Lamed Gimel. There I had the most important person that affected me was Bezelik Feldman, Alav Shalom, who was Shiva there. There was other... Nachum Wilhelm was also again there, and there was also Yosel Segal, who is now the Rosh Kerel Tzemach Tzedek. He was the Mashpia then. And then my Chavrusa, I had a Chavrusa, we learned together a lot, and then he decided to drop out and got to Mir Yeshiva. So that had a very, it put me in a bad situation, and I felt uncomfortable. So one of the options was to come here. Okay, that's one thing. Part of
How old are you then?
By the time 15, my bar mitzvah was Tavshin Lamed.
So this is one of the options to come to New York.
Yeah. And we had a bunch of bochrim, like today they're called shluchim. I don't remember they were called shluchim then. Elder bochrim used to came to yeshiva, and they inspired us. I remember Moshe Perman, who is now a shliach in Caracas, and Chaim Ashkenazi, Olav Shalom. There was a lot of the elder bochrim.
They were coming from 770.
Yeah, they was after Kvutze. They came to us after Kvutze.
So they gave you a little bit of a flavor of
770. Yeah, they gave us a flavor of 770. And I remember those years, Tavshin Lamed Lamed was also a very important year because Likutei Sichos used to come out every week. It was a major inspiring
and you would get it.
Thing. Yeah, we got the Likud, and everybody would learn and koch very much on the Likutim. I remind myself now, I want to tell you, I remind myself that Shalom Beis was a Melamed. So I think over Elul Tavshin Chav Zayin, one day he speaks to the boys and says, you should know the Rebbe was Machadash, a new way of learning Rashi and Chumash. I must tell you, it's unbelievable. And he gave us this thing. He says, and everybody who has a question, tell it to me and I'll send it to the Rebbe.
The Rashi Sichos.
Rashi, not in the Sicha. Shaila in Rashi. You have a Shaila in Rashi.
I'm saying, but he introduced
you
you
to
the
concept of Rashi
Sichos
when they were 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Today, children 9 years old, so
I learned Rashi Sichos with my 8-year-old. It was difficult.
Yeah,
but,
can you imagine?
Yeah.
So I'm saying, remember I even gave him some kind of question. Stop. So I'm saying that these types of things were already started earlier, but we were children, we really didn't appreciate it. But when we got to yeshiva, and we had the bochrim that came in 70, and we had the Likutim that used to come out every. It was very inspiring and
there was no the hookups yet.
No, wait a minute. Okay, you're right. Okay, hookups also. I remember the hookup situation. So the hookup started. The first hook was Yuchvat Tavshin Lamed. That was also an important event.
Mashiach Sefer Torah, the whole.
Yeah, Mashiach Sefer Torah, right? I remember about Mashiach Sefer Torah, but the whole idea
was the first hookup.
The first hookup was Yuchvat Tavshin Lamed. I remember waking up in the middle of the night, like 3 o'clock in the morning. That was the time that our times were still organized before we become a bocher, you know.
Right.
So 3 o'clock usually asleep. So you woke up 3 o'clock, and we lived then in the middle of Yerushalayim, in Sanhedrin, to walk. It was a nice walk, like maybe 20-25-minute walk up a hill. It was a long walk in the middle of the night. We come to yeshiva, and there's a hookup, and it's a gate nicht. Like you can't hear, you could hear. It was quite sporadic, but it was the first time we heard the Rebbe. It was extremely. Then I was still 12 years old. Yuchvat Tavshin Lamed was only 12. By mitzvah was Elul. So, but I do recall it. But later, the Shidurim started to become more organized. It was also part of the inspiration.
So you were already listening to the Rebbe farbrengens in
Sure,
Israel.
not that I'm saying I understood, but
you didn't understand then.
No, I understood something. Some things I understood.
You were young.
What? Lefi my age, and especially when the Rebbe spoke about some things that when he spoke about a Gemara, something that we learned, especially something that we learned in the Gemara, etc. It was very inspiring, obviously. And
so then the option to come to New York starts developing.
Yeah. There's a few reasons. First of all, like I said, I lost my chavus, and in the yeshiva in Terasemes, I don't know if I want to talk. It wasn't. I didn't feel comfortable, and it was a big ruach. Let's go to the Rebbe. Everybody was talking about it. So El Lamed Gimel, I ended up here.
You were off.
I was ended up here. The first month I slept in some Nalo family on Carroll Street because their son was punked out my class. So he
was in your class.
He came also from Nalo family. He came learn up in Terasemes. I don't remember why. His last name was Donner.
What was his name?
Donner.
Okay.
He lived on Carroll Street so because I stayed Tisha in their house. Just stay sleeping. And Tisha Lamed Daled, anybody who knows Chabad history, was like one of the, it was a major month. Funny, to me, it felt, this is what it was. I didn't realize later that this was something very, very different from the year before and the year after. Because first of all, the Yom Kippur War happened then. The Rebbe farbrengens, and the Rebbe spoke, he thought that there was a munah, but there was a lot of things happened that month which didn't happen later. But to me, that was my introduction.
So you came...
like, I fell right into the...
bang.
Yeah, with a bang, like you say, right. I fell into Tisha, and I have to find a place to stand by farbrengens, and all these type of things took a while to land, as they say. And then also there was a lot of interesting things that happened. I don't remember the details. We're talking something about more than 50 years ago, but there was then a cloud that no yeshiva can accept someone unless the yeshiva he comes from gives a zettel. And Terasemis didn't want to let me go. So I didn't get the reshut from Terasemis to leave, really. So I had to struggle here. So for a month, I was just sitting in 770, sleeping on the bench, and like I was really
homeless.
Oh, sort of. And but then late in the end, Olidort took me in. I went to the truth is I went to Morristown also to try Morristown, but so I wasn't happy. I came to be by the Rebbe, but I'm going to be Morristown. That's where I came from. So and I ended up being an Olidort. The Olidort then, it's totally not the Olidort of today. There was a building called 695 Eastern Parkway. I don't think it exists anymore. So there was
695.
695, which is on the corner of Brooklyn and Eastern Parkway.
Across the street, on the side of where Olidort is today.
Yeah, on the side.
That's the Kehos that had something there once.
Not Kehos, Sosever on the Kehos. Yeah,
okay,
later.
Yeah.
So 695. There was Olidort had a branch over there from the older Bochum. The yeshiva itself was in Rheinis. In Troy. So there, I remember learning there also, doing Tisha, maybe I was like dort nechet. But then, when in 695 there was Rosh Yeshiva was Rabbi Saul Friedman, the Mashpia was Shlomo Majeski. That's what it was. And there were three classes there. The oldest class, the difference was probably the Alter Bochum, and also the shurim they got was
but you were an Alter Bochum.
Exactly. I was the youngest. I was 16. In El Talamadin, I became 16. I came there I came to 70 when I was 16.
So you ended up with older people?
No. There was also three grades there. There was the highest grade. I was in the lowest grade. That was my age group.
I want to share something special that's happening through Machne Yisrael. Many of you listening can remember the moments that you spent in the Rebbe and the Rebbe's home. Whether it was in the Rebbe's physical presence, or whether it was davening, or a special occasion that you recently were in the Rebbe and the Rebbe's home, and how powerful those moments were. Now there's a new Sefer Torah being written for that purpose. The Torah that is being finished now will be used in the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin's home, and it is commissioned for the Rebbetzin. Before it is finished, each of us has a chance to be part of it. You can buy a letter in the Torah. Think about that. Your letter will be in the Torah that's in the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin's house. It's not every day that we have a chance to be part of something that has permanence in the Rebbe's home, and it's a huge sichos for us and our families to be a part of it. Don't wait until it's too late. Go to Torah1304.com right now and purchase a letter while it's still available. Let's all have a part in this Torah together.
One of my good friends from those years, Olav Shalom Lipa Dubrovsky, he was a friend of mine. He was in my class. There was a guy, Avon Baruch Yunik, Olav Shalom, and then we have Yosel Katzman, That was my class, the low grade. The higher grade was Yossi Gurari at Detroit, Shalom Haritonov, noch nehmen, Yosel Machkin. The middle class was Shalom Bergorari, he's in Brazil, and David Zalmanov, the Mashpia, and Mendy Lukarski, the Rov.
Mm-hmm.
So I became a chavos of Mendy Lukarski. And we learned together for a year. So one year, we were there in Olei Torah. Rabbi Sol was our Mashpia, our yeshiva. We learned Masechtas Shabbos. And Shlomo Jeski was our Mashpia. We learned Ranat. Shlomo. We learned Ranat by him. I remember at one point, you see, in the other interview, it was mentioned that at that point, Lamed Daled, the situation with the Anochas was very schwach. There was no Anochas. So one day, Reb Shlomo Jeski decided that we were going to write Kitzurim of Anochas every the Wochim in that group will write Anochas. Everybody got his piece. My lot was Likutei Levi Yitzchak.
So what I was saying, you have to slow down over here. I have to process what's going on over here. So now you're moving on from Olei Torah to the...
I'm saying that unrelated. No, it's unrelated. I'm just want to say one point that I remember of Shlomo Jeski.
Okay, yeah.
So his daughters are not. I just want to tell you one cent. Mm-hmm. So everybody, like the elder Bochum, that's Garidus, they write the first Sichos. Some people are the Rashi Sichos. Somehow I ended up, I know that maybe it went on for, didn't go on for too long, a few months. I forgot, one of my classmates was also Nachum Shapiro, Masker Bezen. Bekitzer, so, because I reminded he was also involved, so I remember, I wrote Likutei Levi Yitzchak. I remember
the
Sichos for ourselves. I remember I heard once the Rebbe schreibt in Hebrew. I wrote an Oris Abba. So Shlomo Jeski tells me, "What's kind Abba? You write Amur. You write Abba. It's not Tabot really."
Okay.
Because the Rebbe said the Taten so I translated Abba, but he said that's not the way you write. You write Amur.
Amur.
It's not Derech Hagav. Cholif. So that's how Lamed Daled ended. The end of Lamed Daled, Tisha Lamed Day, the Rebbe sent everybody away. That was Yavnei Chachamel. If you look at the Sichos, the Rebbe also sent everybody went away. My entire class went away. Half to Israel, to Montreal. Shlichus. But I said, they didn't even offer me. Nobody told me I should go. But I said, I came here. What am I going away now? Mm-hmm. So I was left alone. I had no class. So the next time was Chavei Torah. But Chavei Torah, you have to be a certain age to be there.
It's a Kvutze Bachrim, no?
What?
Isn't it the Kvutze Bachrim?
No, the Kvutze was older. I was 17.
See, in Chavei, isn't that usually the...
No, at that point, Chavei started Lamed Gimel.
The Sicha that Rebbe spoke about.
Yeah, the Sicha, of course, the Rebbe Sicha. I remember we heard that Sicha in a Shidur.
Yeah.
When the Rebbe spoke about it.
Maim Tachtein and
Yeah, and the Bachim came from St. He explained to us what he's talking about, because we didn't...
Right, the Rebbe's giving a whole
Sicha,
Maim Tachtein and Beichem.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got no idea what the Rebbe's talking about.
Exactly.
The Rebbe's talking about that the Bachim need to move
The
from
Bachim
770 to
exactly,
Chavei.
from 770 to Chavei Torah. So at that point, Chavei Torah was... So I ended up being the youngest Bach in Chavei Torah, because I was the only one left. Mm-hmm. In other words, my class left, and so I ended up in Chavei Torah. In the Chavei Torah, we have Mendlik gave us a shir, I think it was a little Gitten then, if I remember correctly, Gitten, and Shlomo Zachi taught us Samach, Tavshin Ches, and what's Tavshin Ches? Tavshin Ches, I think Samach, one of the Samachs, I don't remember.
But it's muted then.
Not sure it's muted. He gave us shir, I remember Chayes Klal, Chayes Prat, what is Samach Gimel? So he gave us shurim in Chassidus Nigle. So that's why I ended up in Chavei Torah 1 year. At that point, let's take a step back. And I came here to Tavshin Lamed Daled. You didn't ask me about it, but I'll about the chazara. So the chazara was...
I was going to ask you about
exactly.
it. So
that's a chazara. The only kind of chazara, it was total democracy. There was not a pshat that somebody was interviewed someone.
What was democracy? The chazara was democracy?
Yeah, democracy means anybody who wants, Rabbi Yoel sits down, Motzei Shabbos, when I came at least, downstairs in 70, in over there, you can see in the pictures. And nobody is asking you, who are you, what do you know, what you don't know. Everybody can start and sit down and mix in. Excuse me, the Rebbe said that, the Rebbe didn't say this. You know?
But I interviewed other people.
Yeah.
They said there was a hierarchy, meaning if you had something to say and you weren't part of the club, someone would give you a look, and then you're intimidated to say anything. I don't know, is that not your experience?
There is to a degree, but obviously, when you go into a new group and all of a sudden you start talking, say, who are you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's verstehe ich, emes. But Tzad Sheni, the fact that you mixed in, that made you a part of it. Nobody said to you, excuse me, not longer. Right. Maybe remes. Actually, I remember that in that Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Simchas Torah. It was a 3-day yontiv, right? So in the 3-day yontiv Simchas Torah, if you pay attention, there was like 4 farbrengens and daf alten Kop, because also Shabbos Bereishis.
And
So
two
you
of
have
them.
like this. No, you have
2 farbrengens Shabbos Bereishis.
2 farbrengens Shabbos Bereishis. So first there's a farbrengen of Friday, Motzei Simchas Torah, the first farbrengen Motzei Simchas Torah, and the Rebbe only made a short farbrengen. Then Shabbos Bereishis. Oh no, don't forget. There was also the first night. There was the first night. The first night you have. There's the Simchas Torah farbrengen before a Kofes.
Leil Simchas
Simchas Torah.
Then Yom Simchas Torah.
Then Yom Simchas Torah. Then Shabbos Bereishis morning. Shabbos Bereishis evening. So you have 4 farbrengens. Can you imagine that? So and people in the alten Kop, when the Rebbe said what, and between the farbrengens they used to. The Reb Yoel was to go, and a few bochim used to come listen to him and make sin, this and that. I remember that I was a child, I was 16 years old, so I see a bunch of bochim. In my memory, Shalom Duchem and Yasiecht, but Reb Yoel sitting like I think it was Simchas Torah, one of these farbrengens. So I ran over to hear, to listen. I don't think I mixed in, but I wanted to be part of it because of all my. Like I said, the excitement was from the chinuch from before. Did he want to hear what I ever said?
Right. This is before you're writing hanachas or anything.
No.
This is right in the beginning.
It's not about writing hanachas. I'm talking about this as a bach in some 70. Then, actually, so what happened? So that's what Simchas Torah. Then I was interested. First of all, I want to tell you that after Tishrei came Shabbos Bereishis, Tishrei, there is a Emuno, Sukkot, Yom Kippur, mit Amol, Shabbos, like Cheshvan comes. Nothing doing.
There's no farbrengens.
No farbrengens. It was such a downer. But then I used to
Rebbe changed that in the memes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those things change later. But that for me, again, it's also, there was ups and downs later also. But for me, especially, like, if you, let's say, if somebody came in the summer when there's no farbrengens, and then there's Tisha, then you go back. But you start on the high, and all of a sudden, it's a different... I did start writing in my letters to home because I was so excited about being able to listen to the Rebbe and the Korzach and everything. So I used to write the Kitzo. What the Rebbe said, this Sicha, that Sicha. You know,
to your father?
To my parents. And to my father. And but then another point is Reb Levin happens to be a shtickle relative of mine. Quite far, because his grandmother, my grandfather were cousins. So because of that, he felt a certain kinship, and at that point he was writing the Rebbe's maamorim. He was writing the Rebbe's maamorim. So he got me also interested in that already then. I didn't actually write, but I was like involved. He showed me.
You knew about the process.
I knew about the process a little bit. So then chazara happened. So I used to come to chazara, mix in a little bit. And mostly I came to listen to Reb Yoel. And at that point, Reb Yoel and Yossi was the main, second. He was arguing with Reb Yoel. The Rebbe said this, the Rebbe said it this way, that way. When he said it in the first sich, in the second sich. And so I was involved. And slowly I got involved more, and I wrote, and then like I said, Tov Shalom Hey, all my friends went away.
So what was this project of writing Lamed Dalet in Al Torah? That was Stam?
For ourselves.
Hanacha
Yeah,
for ourselves.
Yeah, for ourselves.
To have a kach in the Sichos.
Exactly, because there was no anach, because the people who wrote the anachas didn't, it was not produced in time. It was their all. And if you look,
this was mentioned on a different interview. Why we'll get into later. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't matter why. The Tov Shalom Hey, I had friends who, like I said, they all ran away. Some to USSR, some to Montreal. So I used to write also, send them my rishimas. Not full anochas, but kitzurim from the Sichos. So that got me involved a little bit. And then I started a little talking to Reb Yoel also once in a while, asking him, So that was Tov Shalom Hey. And And David Feldman used to write Mamish every farbrengen in Hebrew, Bekitzot himself, and send it out to a few friends. We used to have a friend, mutual friend, we used to have Yitzchak Meir Sassover. He was the Yemanim then. Mm-hmm. He's the younger Sassover brother. He had an older brother, Saul Sassover, all the Yemanim and the Orlichovs. He was the younger one.
Many of them have been translated.
Sure, yeah. But I'm saying, Sassover was a good friend of mine, and we used to converse and talk. And he used to help type. Marshall David was, I think David at that point used to write, and then he was to type. We like in a small group, we used to do things together. And so again, Lamed Hey was my year that I was in Chavet Torah, and learning the Chizos, but most of my koch already became in the Sichos, and what the Rebbe says. Then you have to understand another point, which we'll talk about later, that there's a major difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov farbrengens and Yemei HaChol. Because Yemei HaChol, because if you knew there was a tape, somehow, at least me and when you listened, I'd have to remember it. There's a tape. So you listen to what is in it. You don't apply as much.
You're not working.
You're not working. Okay? You don't apply. Forget, maybe it's a mile. You listen to, instead of trying to memorize it, you listen to it more. So there's a difference. I'll tell you later why it's relevant. But then Tov Shana Medvav came. Those years, there was a special incentive for Bochum to go on Shlichus in Ocean Parkway. Reb Yoel used to give shurim and Samach Vov there. And only Bochum got to Ocean Parkway because they wanted the elder Bochum from the 70s. She got to Ocean Parkway to inspire the younger generation. So I also applied for that, so to speak. My Chavrus, Tzvi Greenblatt, the shliach in Russia, in Argentina, he convinced Rabbi Mentlik that I'm royal over. So we went together. There was a group of guys. David Feldman was there. You know who else was there? I don't remember. I don't remember the other names now. And so that's how we got to know the younger generation. Like, who was the young class then was, there were two classes in Mesift and Ocean Parkway. What do I remember from the older class? Itchel Pus, Shemenar Rosenfeld, Alti Bucket, became later my Mechutten. He was from the younger generation. And then we had the Rabbi Dorten, Rabbi Lapkovsky, and Rabbi Bucket, Rabbi Ushpal. And the ikar is that Reb Yoel gave a shir on Yechidus, Samach Vov. And the mashpia there was Ber Lipsker, actually. Official mashpia of the younger generation was Ber Lipsker. So Reb Yoel used to give us a shir on Yechidus, Samach Vov. That's when we really got, at least me, that's when got really a chunk of Reb Yoel's learning. And this also, Lamed Vov was also a year that the Rebbe started, there was a lot of farbrengens, especially relative to Lamed Hey, at least in my memory. A lot of farbrengens, Lamed Vov. It was a Shonu Beres also, but there was a lot of farbrengens. I just remember, I think Zayin Order, there was a farbrengen. All of a sudden they told us the farbrengen, we were in Ocean Parkway, we ran on the train to come back. We got, what do you say it? Hitchhike, it's even freilich. And a lot of times we used to run back and forth because we wanted to not to miss the weekday farbrengen. Shabbos we were here for sure, but even weekdays. And at that point we got involved more. Already in the other interview, somebody spoke about more barichas, what happened at Mishpatim Lamed Vov. There was a new order, Nanochas. So I got involved much more.
So when the new order of Bad Nachasatim started, right, you became officially involved.
Sort of officially. The truth is, it started earlier also a little bit because I started already helping to write the Alol Danochas. They found
the Sichos or the Maamar?
Sichos. They found lately, actually, Hamshol told me, he showed me, he found something, I wrote Breishis Lamed Hey, Xavier, the Yiddish, they'll farbrengen. I didn't remember even. It looks like I sporadically has to write something. But at that point, I got involved much more, and Mishpatim Lamed Vov, it was Parshas Mishpatim? No, Vayakel Pekudei. Mishpatim was the first Sicha. Then Vayakel Pekudei, all of a sudden we said that we want to ask the Rebbe questions. It was new for us. What do you say? How do you sign? So we asked the Rebbe a question, and the Rebbe answered, Lokach, it was a Shaila Likut Sichos. Now it's a Likut already printed, Likut Chelek Design, but about Machshove, the word Machshove versus Dibur, Nisan, Tishre. So the Rebbe wrote in the answer, Lokach, it's a Shaila Likut Sichos Chelek Dalet. So the Rebbe wrote, it's genommen dort in how many years? 25 years. It's a number, I don't remember the number. Actually, so it inspired us.
I don't understand. You asked a Shaila on
the farbrengen, but it was in Likut Sichos talked about it also.
I already spoke about Likut Sichos.
No, Likut Sichos, the questions on Likut Sichos also.
Okay.
So the Rebbe said, well, it took you so long to remind us to ask a question. Something was printed
so
24 years ago.
As the Rebbe is enjoying that.
Yes.
That people are asking Shailas
of course. The Rebbe was it gave us some huge boost. The Rebbe answered like ganzen Koch. Then the way we organized the Anoch is then, again, I don't want to get into too many details, but the Tzvi Grimbert is tried the maamorim. Tzvi Grimbert tried the maamorim, Shalom Chatan looked it over. And Dovid Feldman is tried the Sichos until the Maamar. Now he's tried Sichos after the Maamar.
The Rashi.
Rashi and the Kutavitzok, whatever, the Kehos, everything. And so then after the Rebbe answered us, we got a little more brave. So we started asking questions. So in the Maamar, you can see it's all printed these days. Kseinas Bat Kodesh, Shabbos Tzav, which is Shabbos Agodol, I think. Shabbos Tzav, the Rebbe said in the Maamar, the Rebbe said something that didn't fit, but the big Dekorun or something. So, and when I was sitting before the farbrengen, person was sitting next to me, Zisl Pekarski, showed me that Teres Reish says something similar, which also doesn't fit the Chumash. So I said, can I ask the Rebbe and that Teres Reish?
You can ask it on the Teres Reish.
No, but it's also on the Sicha. And the Maamar also, somehow connected. So the Rebbe answered, Kanir Yeshara Me'ein Zu Bekisse V'Tzemach Tzedek. We never found it Tzemach Tzedek, but later when Yechidus Kodesh was printed, it looks like the Rebbe...
Translate what the Rebbe said.
The Rebbe said that this kind of... It's our Or and a Maamar and a Teres Reish of the Mittel Rebbe, so the Rebbe says that there is probably this type of comment by the Tzemach Tzedek somewhere. But later we found, when the Yechidus Kodesh was printed, that someone asked the Rebbe that question in the Yuds, in a letter to the Rebbe, the same question, the Teres Reish, and the Rebbe... there's no clear answer. I don't remember the answers. That was the beginning of a situation that we started sort of writing, asking questions of the Rebbe.
Would you look for what to ask? Or
no.
If you didn't understand something.
Yeah, there's always, the Rebbe spoke so much and so many topics. There was always things that you can ask. Didn't look to ask, but we got the breitkeit to ask.
So you would, once you got an answer from the Rebbe, you would write the Hanocha based with that understanding.
Sure. No, but usually it wasn't on the general concept of the Maamar, but on the detail. Again, don't forget, Reb Yoel Kahan was always involved. Still, it always involved him in the same. We asked him, it's not like he was always like
overseeing it,
not in the direct way, but if there was something serious, we asked him. And if you find today it's all in Sichos Kodesh, but you'll find the Teilam at Bavel Lamed Zayin, you'll see there's a lot of answers from the Rebbe and a lot of farbrengens, because it was all based on that thing. So Lamed Bavel Lamed Zayin. So then, so Tzvi Grimbert is to write maamorim, but what happened was he in the summers used to go to Argentina. So somehow I took over. I took over for him. I don't remember exactly how it was decided it's not like I was especially knowledgeable or anything. Yatsa kacha, sorry. That I took over for him in the summers. So I started writing maamorim in a more organized way. So actually, I don't remember some Lamed Zayin. Okay, so so then the whole Amid Zion, we start Sichos, Maamar. I mean, again, like I told before, all the Sichos after the Maamar, but I don't remember if every farbrengen. But the important thing is, I don't know how important, but the interesting thing is that when it came to the tape farbrengens, we were not still medayik and writing them down because it's still a tape. Anybody who was there can listen to the tape. Those days it wasn't as easy as today, but it was still.
I think when they printed Sichos Kodesh, Chaim Shal talked about it. Part of that Veda was to write the Hanachas of the weekday. Because you guys didn't do it. So if they're making a book, they had to write from the tape. They did it from the tape.
And the Rebbe was very adamant against Miluli. So you can't just take a direct transcript from the tape.
Right, that's what it has to be something you can read.
It has to be readable, you have to check the Mekayos, the fix, v'chul.
Among Chassidim is brought to you by Yechidus Derher. We live in a chaotic world. A world where for us Chassidim, as a Seinu, Lei Ra'inu, we do not have the ability to hear and see the Rebbe on a daily basis. Yet we know that the Rebbe is very much with us, and the Yechidus Chabad is alive and thriving more than ever before. One needs to only tap into it. Yechidus Derher provides you and your family with the tools necessary to tap into all of this. Whether it's the monthly magazine, the way it all began, whether it's Derher books, Derher online content, and so much more. Men, women, and children throughout the world benefit and use these tools on a daily basis. Whether it's children enjoying the children's magazine that comes along with the regular Derher, or enjoying the children's podcast, whether it's Bachrim in yeshivas receiving the Derher, whether it's girls in high schools enjoying their hair club in their local high school. People all over the world and from all walks of life enjoy and utilize these tools and take advantage of it. If you're not already subscribed to the Derher monthly magazine, do so today at derher.org. That's derher.org. Derher is a dynamic organization which is committed to continue providing these tools, grow on a constant basis, and do all that we can to help this effort. Baruch Hashem, it takes a lot of resources and finances to make this all happen. You can be part of Derher through your financial support as well, through visiting our website derher.org, or through contacting us to setting up a meeting. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Amid Zion was a very interesting, intense year. A lot of interesting things happened. We asked about the questions. Something interesting happened with, I hope this is close enough to me, that Basel gar nicht auf schon Amid Zion, like I said, Reb Tzvi is the right maamorim then, and Basel gar nicht, the Rebbe said the maamorim twice, Shabbos and Motzei Shabbos. And the Rebbe gave a hero after Shabbos, they should turn it into one maamorim. The main maamorim should be the one from Motzei Shabbos, because that was Nemer Barabim, and in the bottom should add the additions from Shabbos. Tzvi wrote it, the Rebbe was magiert. Then after Shabbos, the next Shabbos, B'Shalach, the Rebbe said a maamorim, in an imam tilachem. And again, I don't know why Tzvi wasn't there. So I wrote it, and we printed Anochas about Mimim. That was one of the chidushim of the new Anochas, so to speak, was everything came out right away. So the Rebbe said a maamorim in an imam til. Oh, actually, it's a tape. Maybe it was a tape. So we right away made it and printed it. All of a sudden, the Rebbe takes the printed maamorim, the way we did it, the way I did it. It was from a tape. Yeah, it was on tape. So when I got the maamorim from a tape, I was 19 years old. Okay. So I wrote more or less the Rebbe said. I wrote the Rebbe said. I fixed the language a little bit. I was meidig with Alosh Shenes from Yechidus, from Chazal, more or less. So the Rebbe wrote Lahak Muzo. That it's not written in the Papa's style, but it was still magiert, and he wrote Hanocha on it. And then we, in those days, we used to give it a second time. After it was typeset, we used to give the long, it used to be called galleys, but the Rebbe was Magia a second time, and it came out. That was like my first experience, the Rebbe's Magia maamorim that I wrote. And not that if I would have known the Rebbe's Magia, I wouldn't even do it.
Usually Reb Yoel will do it.
Usually, this actually, Basel gar nicht, Tzvi did. somehow I did it just to help out.
Right, and the Rebbe ended up being Magid.
They ended up being Magid. Okay. So that's what happened in the Mount Lamed Zayin. Yudalef Nis Lamed Zayin was also something interesting. The Rebbe said, that's just a memory that I have, that the Rebbe said, that was the Bnei B'Seir. The Rebbe said in the Maamar, in Sichos, Tzibur Sheteves Tzadikim Beinen Rishoim, which steht in Kehos Yaakov. Kehos Yaakov, his name is Yalis, the famous Kehos Yaakov. Kehos Yaakov is a book, it's in Kabbalah, but also wrote Moloi Roim, Sefer Nigel. It was a big posek. That's what I was able to bring. So we look, those days there was limited ways how to get sources. We look, we can't find the Kehos Yaakov. We can't find it. Later, by the way, it was found in Kehos Yaakov. Not an Erech Tzibur, it's a different Erech. By the time we couldn't find it, so we ran around, we found it was a sefer, the Zeichens Tzibur Shoim, in a sefer from Chido. Kikar Lod and Chido, another place. So we right away ran to Rabbi Groner, to the Gefunden. So he told the Rebbe said, Chido is given a Geisa Pesach.
If you could do Chido.
Yeah. It was interesting. I'm just a memory that I have from those days. So all Lamed Zayin, we were very involved, and you can see in the Anochas and Sichos Kodesh, especially in the summer, Pirkei Avos, almost every Pirkei Avos, he asked questions, and the Rebbe answered, and the Rebbe also gave Halakim. It was very going back to Lamed Vav, Shavuos Lamed Vav was a very interesting thing. Shavuos Lamed Vav, the Rebbe spoke about Tvilas Kelim. But Tvilas Kelim, the Rebbe's Yechidus, Machshirin Minei Iso, that the Keli becomes, it's like Geirus, because the Keli was in the end of a goy. So it was muchshot to have tray food, and when you take it away from the rishus of a goy to eat, it can only have kosher food. It's lachshiren min lachshiren. The diuk, the Rebbe, according to that, the Rebbe answered the question why we don't table the kelim after Pesach. The Rebbe bought the Shara Koilel and said, I started going my Gezeide, aber nicht, they disagreed with what the Shara Koilel said.
The Rebbe said,
yeah, the Rebbe said, I started my Zeide, but disagreed. There was Diane Fisher from England came to the farbrengens. It was all interesting things that happened. Shavuos Lamed Vav. It's not I remember stuff now. So it's Lamed Zayin, all Lamed Zayin. What happened later? The other interesting that happened Lamed Zayin, Maamar, the Maamar Shabbos Matis Masei. The Rebbe said, Maamar Voya mi de Chodesh b'Chodesh mi de Shabbos b'Shabbatei. And he spoke about whether all these things are printed. I'm just expressing things that the way I experienced them then, to give it a little more background. So we asked some etwas nicht gestimmt. The Rebbe said that that on Shabbos they're going to come to Yerushalayim. Every Shabbos they're going to go back and forth. There was a shayla yesh tchum lamala ma'asor. So we asked the Rebbe. So it was a Maamar. I asked the Rebbe the question. And
you wrote?
Yeah, because I wrote the Maamar. So I asked the Rebbe the question. The Rebbe had a long answer. And the Rebbe Klein said the Rebbe asked him to go to the library to find some sefer. Very long answer. It's printed now in maamorim and look at the Sichos. It just was an interesting experience. Another interesting experience that happened in Lamed Zayin, Shabbos Eikev. So the Rebbe said, at least that's what they told us. The Rebbe said there's going to be no farbrengens. So Reb Yoel went to Camp Gan Yisrael for Shabbos. Reb Yoel wasn't here, so it was a very small farbrengen, and so the only people who were left were us, the few Bochim. So the Maamar of and the Sichos, everything we wrote basically. No, it's a memory of a time that the Reb Yoel wasn't there. It was time in my experience. The Reb Yoel wasn't there, and we had to basically by ourselves what had to write and this.
But what I'm curious about is the process of writing. So how does it get from chazara to what's the process to writing the Sichos, but also specifically I'm also interested in maamorim. And my question is, do you have to be able to do both? Do you have to be able to remember, or how does this work?
There's no klolim in it. I can tell you how it happened in real life. Mm-hmm. So in real life, when I can tell you from my own personal experience what I remember. Let's say I listened to the Rebbe's Maamar, so more or less I remember more or less said. I understand a little bit what he said. Then, when Rabbi Yoel said this chazara, Motzei Shabbos, you write down details. You write down kitzurim, what the Rebbe said. B'meil, if you have the kitzurim, b'kitzer, and then you sit down to write it down. You use both. You use what you remember, and you use the notes, which are short notes, and together, I still have some rishimus I wrote those days.
So basically, like this. So you have, if you're writing a hanacha, you have to make sure that you know the whole sikha from the Rebbe, and then when Reb Yoel's doing chazara, it's like a refresher,
right?
And you can write down. So you
write down the kitzer,
right? You can write the kitzers, and from yourself and what you wrote from Reb Yoel, you're able to start writing hanacha.
Not only that, when it comes to maamorim, you have to also open the books. Sichos also, but maamorim even more, because the Rebbe said, Maamar Rebbe said in Sienu, say open up. What does it say? And sometimes it says a little differently, so you have to know how to write it. You make the decision. Sometimes yes, the Rebbe the Rebbe said it says this. It says a little different. It depends. Sometimes yes, there's such things. Yeah, that's an important component of what you're saying. But the truth is that even the write a maamorim from the tape, it's also a process, because there's words that the Rebbe says, but then you have to understand what he means and how it fits with the sources. That after, like I said, after Tav Shalom Advov, we started writing Sichos. So, like Baimer Lamed Vov, the Rebbe said, I think this is the first of the base Psukim. Lamed Baimer was the first or the second, I don't remember. So after that, Rabbi Gona called us, and they said, me and David Feldman, he said, we have to write up the Sicha in a way, I guess it was for the Pardes probably, or the more.
For the publication.
So we sat down and wrote it, and to us it was the first experience to write something, not anochas, something to write it up properly. And the Rebbe was very unhappy with it. So he wrote this thing that you have to make sure not to write miluli. I think after I had that very sharp answer, you're not allowed to start miluli, you have to rewrite it in a normal way. And also he said shouldn't be in the signet of newspapers and the signet of Chidushei Torah. And this can applies to everything, especially this like the children. To write that in a way that it's a major challenge. So basically, that went off, but it was a major teaching experience for us. The way the Rebbe wants the Sichos should be written.
Right.
Tav Shalom Advov, if I remember correctly, it was Lamed Vov. So Reb Yoel Kahan had not a minhag. After every farbrengens Shabbos, one bocher used to come with him home to sit in the Basudas Shabbos to repeat the Sichos between themselves before the chazara Friday night. So when I came, Yossi Echt was the guy.
Before Friday night?
Motzei Shabbos, before Motzei Shabbos. So when I came, Yossi Echt was the bocher who used to come to him. Then Yossi Echt got married, but then he got married and then he moved to Shlichus, to Israel. So at that point, Yael asked me to stop. So from Lamed Vov until I got married, Mem Aleph. So every Shabbos, after farbrengens, I have to come to him after farbrengens, by the Sudas Shabbos. He used to repeat the Sichos, and I was like his sort of, what is the word? Sidekick. Not sidekick in a way that, like, asking him if maybe... Pushback. Discussing it. Shouldn't talk to the... Rabbi Weinberg used to come sometimes Shabbosim also, because he used to say the Sicha Motzei Shabbos in the radio, so we want to hear what Rabbi Yoel said. So that's what I'm saying. Lamed Vav Lamed Zayin was a very high-end situation. Also, by the way, I went to Yechidus also, Lamed Vav, over Lamed Vav, I went into Yechidus. At that point, we came Lamed Dal, was an announcement, no more Yechidus Emeledes. There's no such thing as Yechidus Emeledes. But when my Lamed Vov was my 19th Emeledes, I came to Label Goner. First of all, for my 18th Emeledes, those days, I write a letter, settle to the Rebbe that he wants to start learning Rabbi Nutam. That was the minhag then. At age 18, he has the Rebbe. But when I 19th Emeledes, I told Label Goner, it's true, the Emeledes, but I was never in Yechidus. I want to go in Yechidus once. So Chodesh, probably it was Parshas Re'eh, because the Rebbe mentioned the passing Parshas Re'eh, probably the end of Ov, or beginning of the end of Ov, I think. I went Tavshin Lamed Vov. I went into Yechidus. And the Rebbe told me a few interesting things.
What?
But the Rebbe spoke about three things: the importance of Shmiras Hasdorim, because obviously I wasn't Shem Hasdorim, but
and the Rebbe had a report about it.
yeah, no, and I wrote myself to the Rebbe that I'm having a hard time. It's a big challenge for me, and the Rebbe spoke very strongly. It's important. Shmiras Hasdorim, Miftzoim. That I wrote to the Rebbe that I have a hard time doing Miftzoim, and he told me he also encouraged. He said it's important.
What did the Rebbe say?
That I think the Rebbe said that you have to feel that you go up the koy of the Rabbeim, משהו כזה. And the third thing I asked the Rebbe was about memory, that I felt that I don't remember when I learn. I learned Gemara, and this I don't remember everything.
Mm-hmm.
So the Rebbe said something interesting, that you should, every time you finish learning something, you should write down for yourself in short the teichen. He said something, cook auf ein Zegel, like every 10 minutes or something. Write down to yourself the kids of what you wrote, and concentrate on the kids of what you wrote. That will help you memorize things.
It's interesting.
Then the Rebbe in Yechidus used to go with the pen, with the pencil, first he read settle once, and then he went back with the pencil and everything he wrote, answered, and then he took my name. When he put it in my name, he said since he came from Acher Masach Basel, and there he had a hard time. It was hard to Shmiras Termitzvos, and here you came out of there, so you have to utilize the fact that you're now in a state that you can do it. You have to take advantage of it.
You have to take advantage and also appreciate it.
Not just appreciate, use it. That's generally I remember from that Yechidus. Okay. Going back, we're gonna have to go through this.
That's a little bit more than a typical
I don't know
at the time, I think.
No, but somebody told me once that the Rebbe used to say that to people who came from Russia. Mm-hmm. Somebody told me that once. Okay. So what I want to tell you that all of us Lamed Ches after what happened Lamed Ches
after the Rebbe's heart attack.
Yeah. So the whole thing changed because there was no more Shabbos farbrengens. If you remember what I told you earlier, the big koch wasn't Shabbos farbrengens because you have to memorize it. So the whole idea of memorizing,
because the Rebbe said playing Matzah Shabbos.
Everything was Matzah Shabbos. So there was a tape. So that part, it was a little bit of, in a way, a letdown. There was a mile of the tape. We didn't have that experience of sitting with chazara and korzach and try to understand what the Rebbe said. The truth is, in the beginning, when the Rebbe was, the few Shabbos when the Rebbe was Magia, I was sitting with Reb Yoel, typing his what he wrote, helping with maamorim.
Yeah, because the first few weeks the Rebbe wanted to be Magia.
The Rebbe was Magia everything, but there was the Rebbe was Magia. Simchas Torah, Bereishis, Noach, Lech Lecha, Chayesor. Then stopped after a while. So in a way, that was a little bit of a downer, because the koch, like I explained before, when something you have to memorize, so there's a koch. People say, hey, do you remember that? I said this. When did he say it? But now everything's on tape. So if you want to listen, go listen to the tape. There was a little less. People, we all listened to the tapes, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same koch. There was no sitting with chazor and saying, the Rebbe said this, the Rebbe said, the main dos, was it pshat. So there was a little bit of, you understand? So from basically from Tam Shalom Etches till Tavshin Mem, till the Rebbe started farbrengens Shabbosim again, the whole Moised changed the form. It was more taking tapes and rewriting them. So there was no push, like we said earlier, that anything was on tape. Okay, people can listen to tapes. You don't feel it must come out today.
Did Yoel do chazara then?
No, there was no chazara. No chazara, exactly. So then Pesach Lamed Ches, David Feldman went to Israel. And Sachin Shal Pesach Lamed Ches, in a way, I felt like I was left alone. I was the only. I mean, obviously there was a bunch of guys around, but I wrote the Sichos, I wrote the Maamar, and not only that, but the Seder Lamed Ches. The Seder was a Seder in Farband. The Rebbe came, so I think it was Farband already. So I wrote down what the Rebbe said then also.
When the Rebbe came to visit the Bach.
The Rebbe came to visit the Bach. That's a memory I have from Lamed Ches. Then. But the maamorim, we still are the maamorim. At that point, I think it was, at that point I don't know what happened, but there was a Fight 11 from Australia. So Fight 11 at that point got involved also in in writing the maamorim a little bit for a little while. Lamed Tes, the end of Lamed Tes, my sister got married in Israel, so I went for a few months to Israel, and because there was tapes, so I didn't feel that much. I'm missing that much because I can listen by Shidur. He got a Shidur in here. I mean, he missed the Avirah of 770, but the actual Sichos.
Saying if it wasn't, if the Rebbe was farbrengens every Shabbos, you wouldn't leave for so long.
I wouldn't leave for such a long time. You feel like you can hear everything, anyways. It's a funny. It's like looking back. It's a funny type of thing, but that's how it felt.
Everything's the fierech, right?
Yeah, it's the fierech.
Yeah.
Then there was, I think, the first Shabbos, if I remember correctly, the first Shabbos for Wenger was Bamidbar, Erev Shavuos, Tavshin Lamed Ches, if I remember correctly. It was Erev Shavuos. Bamidbar was, I think, that was for Wenger. Those other things I did was at one point in those days, remember during the long Yom Tov farbrengens, after Tzeitzak Rechovim, somebody used to write it down. There was Shalom Berlevit and Hagadol used to write it down, and Zevla Ketz, the two of them used to write down.
This is before your times.
No, during my times. During farbrengen, okay. They used to prepare from before Shabbos under the table a pen and a paper, and the minute Tzeitzak Rechovim came, they started writing down the kitzah for themselves. Mm-hmm. And then by chazara, I think by chazara, Reb Yoel used to look. It helps to remember because there was not tape, but that was written down. But later on. There was a big shin sidre bereishis after the Lamed Ches thing. For example, Lamed Vav, Lamed Zayin, I used to sit on the side near a few rows below the center, more closer to Mizrach. But then, after the whole shin sidre bereishis, there was no more farbrengen that you. But first of all, tape farbrengens, doesn't matter. When there's a mic, it doesn't matter where you sit. You can hear anywhere. So again, all these things affected. That's I think that. What did I start saying? So then at that point, I got myself a place, Mamish, at the end of the Shvil, in a way that I was bending and I couldn't see the Rebbe.
And the Rebbe started farbrengen again.
Yeah. The Rebbe started farbrengen again. So I was bending. I couldn't see the Rebbe when the Rebbe spoke. Only between the sichos I used to pick up my head. But I remember when the Rebbe said a Maamar, everybody stood up. I also stopped. So the Rebbe was Mamish face to face with me. It was very almost scary. And like I said, later I started writing also b'shas in the Yom Tov farbrengens. So I remember one Yom Tov farbrengen, the Rebbe says a Maamar, and the Mamish face to face, closer than I am with you now, even I think. And I sit and I stand. The Rebbe's eyes are closed, and I stand and I write. Imagine that. Looking back, it's quite interesting. That was one part.
So later on, when did you get married?
Elul Memalef.
So the Hanachas was usually like
but then at that point, because of this, one of the results of Tavshin Lamed Ches, so Tavshin Lamed Tes, winter, Kislev, David Feldman got married. He became already he got married, and like I said, there was no rush to. They still gave out Hanachas. There was no pressure
because it's on tape.
So David Feldman got married, and then he decided to go on Shlichus. Again, he was on Shlichus. He went on Shlichus, and then that's when Simon took over Hanachas. Simon started writing Hanachas in Lashon Kodesh, in Yiddish. Tavshemem, the beginning of Tavshemem. I think his first was. Cheshvan, I think Cheshvan Tavshemem. So Simon, at that point, Hanachas became Simon. But I continued writing the maamorim.
Always.
Yeah. I mean, me and Shlomo, it's really, I wrote, the way it worked was, Motzei Shabbos is to write down Hanocha Protis right away, and it was printed in Shabbos morning, Sunday morning, everybody had done Hanocha Protis from Shabbos. And then Shlomo Chatano looked it over, and he added from memory stuff that he remembered. I mean, I wrote also from chazara, but he also added more, make it like, it should make more sense, it should be more organized. He also edited, so to speak.
Right.
And then the Hanocha came out with maamorim, step 2.
So the maamorim, Vadanach Satmimim didn't do maamorim?
That's Vadanach Satmimim. That's what I'm saying. Simon took it over, and together.
But he never did maamorim.
What?
He never did the maamorim.
No, he himself did not. I wrote maamorim for Vadanach Satmimim.
And then later, when there was
What?
Then it became lahak. And
he has to give it lahak, the same thing.
So there's only one. There's two hanachas of the sichos, but there's only one hanach.
Yeah, one of the maamorim. Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then you also got involved in the sichos, no? In the sichos.
No, that's later. Around Pesach time, around Nisan time, or other time, Tovshin Mem Aleph, I was a Bachar in the 70s. Rebbe Olidort comes over to me and he says that a lot of the sichos feel that they don't have enough. They don't have enough people working, and it's a lot of pressure. So they need another hand to help.
So we need to give a little bit of a hakdama here that.
What?
There's another department of sichos that's happening
all
the time. Likutei sichos. There's nothing to do.
It's nothing with anochas.
It has nothing to do with the farbrengens that are happening.
The current farbrengens,
right?
Yeah. So it means Likutei sichos, they take sichos from previous years and rework them in a way that is a topic, not as a transcript of what the Rebbe said. They take a topic that the Rebbe discusses, sometimes more than one farbrengen, and they turn it into like in modern terms called an essay, or a drush, a pilpul, a Maamar Torani. And it was in Yiddish those days. So that's what Likutei sichos is, a separate being. It's a separate version. It involves more research because you have to go to all the sources. It's not you just say exactly what the Rebbe said. You compare what the Rebbe said to what he said in other places, and it's a much more complicated process. So at that point, a lot of sichos asked me to get involved, help them also in the Likutei sichos. So the first thing I helped was with the minhage birkas hachama. Tovshin Mem Aleph, the birkas hachama, so they gave out in Likud minhag gidut Chabad al pi minhag Chabad, based on what the Rebbe spoke Yud Gimel. Tovshin Yud Gimel, the Rebbe spoke about. So that was the first project I was involved in. Then later, I started helping the Likutei sichos itself, take a sicha from the old years, and I did it.
So what was your job?
Same job as everybody else. Take a sicha, prepare a sicha for Shabbos. But the way it works, the way it worked was not use sicha and that's it. One person writes and the others look it over, edit it.
So what did you do? You wrote or you edited?
Yeah, I wrote.
So which halakim is that?
From Chaf till Chav Dalet. From Mem Aleph till Mem Gimel. Then after Mem Gimel, I was let go. So in other words, the work was too intense for me. At that point, I got some. And I was continuing working in writing maamorim. It's parallel.
Can you tell me, so then the answers from the Rebbe, so that's a whole nother involvement.
Right.
You're much more involved with the Rebbe, with the sichos, because that was...
In a way, yeah.
Everything.
But a lot of hagor, sure, but there was no conversation going on.
They didn't ask questions?
Of course. First we ask questions. In other words, what the sicha...
So that was similar to the hanachas?
It's similar in a way. The arbeit itself is similar, and the Rebbe's involvement was much more. The Rebbe's magia and
the sichos.
At the same time, by the way, when I came in, there was also... The Rebbe wanted Tani Mador Kama. So the Vada Sichos also was involved in doing Tani Mador Kama, and people, like the Rebbe said himself in the Farbrengen and Vayishlach Membeis, that the families, everybody, they didn't sleep because Rebbe wanted it out very fast. So it was about Tani Mador Kama also. It was a lot of hard work, interesting work, a different type of work. But again, okay.
So let me ask you,
Yeah.
I'm interested in your relationship with Reb Yoel. I understand that Reb Yoel had a whole nother project that the Rebbe gave him to do Sefer Ha'erchim
Right.
on Yechidus.
Right.
And I don't know if you were officially involved or he would talk to you about it. Maybe you can...
No, the truth is I wasn't that involved in Sefer Ha'erchim, but Reb Yoel was such a perfectionist. We're talking back to my maamorim. A lot of times Reb Yoel started write maamorim for Hagor. So he starts telling me, please write this paragraph. So I write it. He takes it, he erases the whole thing, writes his own. But he needed something. He needed something to.
It's easier to slug up.
It's easier to slug. Easier, but he was a unique mind. So he's also a perfectionist. So the same thing with Sefer Ha'erchim. I wasn't that really involved in Sefer Ha'erchim. A few individual times he called me up. He says, "There's one paragraph maybe you can help me write it." So I write it for him. And obviously, he writes something, he erases it, and he writes something else. But he needed me to write it in order for him to be able to write his. That's fine. There's other things I was involved with Reb Yoel later on, right after Gimel Tammuz. Rebbe Yoel calls me, says, I want to start giving out the Rebbe's Torah in a different format, and I want you to help me. And that's, I think, computers were not, there was computers already, but so he used to come to my house, and in every word, I used to type and he used to say, let's change it.
What are you talking about? What is
so
this?
we're talking about two tracing came out. One is Eides Chukum Mishpatim B'Mishnas Rebbe, and one is My Chanukah B'Mishnas Rebbe. So a lot of work went into every word, but like you can see it from Sefer Erkim. It took him such a long time because he's a perfectionist, and besides being a perfectionist, he assumed that when people read his text the way he reads other texts, that every word, every ois is b'diuk mamish. Because he sees depth in he thinks people read him the same way. So mainly he writes about no. If you write it that way, people may make the mistake that it means not exactly that. So you have to write it differently. Like, the diuk is outside our floor, and so the same thing. What was with this contrasting? Bis zu gekratzt. So the first one, the Eides Chukum Mishpatim, was because the Gimel Tammuz happened Parshas Chukas, Chuk. That's what he wrote in Zon Agdom. Anyway, but it petered out somehow later. And that was these two, and then there was Machshavas Achsidus, which he calls Mihus and Shalisol. So he spoke about it by phone, and people already published books from it, but he decided he wants to write his own version of it. Also, hours and hours we sat in every word. There was a lot of... It was an interesting experience, the way he paid attention to every detail and he wanted to make sure that there's a source for everything. I remember, I think in my Hanukkah, the two things, also in Botuk days, he said, there's something I remember the Rebbe saying that I can't find a source for it. But I remember 100% the Rebbe said it. It bothered him that he didn't remember where. Mm-hmm. But so he wrote, I don't remember what was exactly the kvetch that he couldn't find the source. But I think the one thing I told him, hey, what about this? He says, it's obvious, but the Rebbe didn't say it. I'm not writing it. I'm writing only what the Rebbe said. There's a daikon in this way.
Is there anything that in the way you did the hanachas, like in hindsight, something that you would do differently if you would be doing it now?
What you're saying is the understatement of the millennium. In other words, I can't see myself writing this anymore now. Because now when I read and listen, I see so much more that I missed. That I can't even relate to the way I wrote it then. To the way it's a different world.
Because you're older and you know more.
Probably, maybe that also because I know more, and also because I'm a different person. It's not the same. When you're young and you're very focused on just right, I was saying, going weiter. Today, you look more for nuance and depth. What
you're saying it needed a certain like pshittus.
Yeah.
In order to do like
to be able to just write what the Rebbe said and get right. But later, it's a chison because I'm sure I missed a lot of nuances because I didn't have the knowledge and the capacity to
right. I mean, anyone will tell you if you learn something.
Right.
Every decade, if you learn it again, it's a whole new
discover new things. Yeah.
So I guess maybe that's what was needed. And it's
I'm not.
It's interesting that Hanachis was but
but the truth is, I wasn't different. And the only difference that happened since we started Nachas was until then, every year or two, the people who did it went onto their own lives. Everybody did their own life, they did it as a bachrim, we do it. Chazara, the Rebbe Sichos and maamorim, and do it and go weiter. But the Nachas started a situation that the person does it, it's almost like shlichus, for life. This is who you are, and you stay like that. So like David did it, and Simon did it. In a way, I did it also when I got to maamorim.
So you did it all the way till the
end. But again, any time that Reb Yoel always had precedent. If he wants to write a maamorim, for sure he would write it. Whenever he wanted to write a maamorim.
Once in a while, he would decide.
Yeah, once in a while, either because they like the maamorim or whatever. And sometimes there was once or twice I wasn't there, so Shalom Haritona wrote it. It was other, like I said, but it was like you devote yourself. This is your calling in a way. what we start, like you see, the Mazay still writes. But in the Chofs, all the people who wrote, like Label Shapira, all these, he wrote his my Sichos and everything beautiful, but then he moved on in life, as they say. You know.
So, what would you say is the, if you look at all the maamorim, it's interesting that maamorim by the Rebbe is like a detail. By the previous Rebbe, maamorim is the whole thing.
Yeah.
By the Rebbe, it's like a detail. It's in a 4-hour farbrengen, and it's probably sometimes the shortest part of it.
Right.
So, I'm curious. It doesn't have to be maamorim only, but I'm curious. What is like? How would you describe the Rebbe's? When you look at all the maamorim, all the Rebbeim, what is the Rebbe's? What is the contribution of the Rebbe is like to Lagabi the what Yechidus existed before that? It's
too the question's too what's the word? Too ambitious a question to answer, like as if I figured it all out. There's a Sichos of the Friedrich Rebbe. He says that in order to get into the Alter Rebbe's Chadorim, you have to be Boki and all these things. In other words, not understand what he's saying. So the Rebbe spoke in such a way that to really understand the depth of what he's saying, you needed a lot of background. But you see, we don't have that much. When you look at Anochas, let's say of the other Rebbe, of the previous, it's a contained thing. The Rebbe spoke very beremes sometimes. He said it's a word over Dorten, and you have to really understand the depth. It's another way of saying it, but it's too. It's a question that can be answered in a satisfactory way. At least I can't answer it in a way that I can define exactly what's the Yechidus. But the Rebbe expected. I think the Rebbe expected. He said people should not the Chassidische Parsha. The Rebbe expected when he spoke. He expected that people know all the background. There was a certain expectation. I think so.
When you compare the Sichos and the maamorim,
yeah.
I'm talking about Bilti Muga mainly.
Yeah, you will. Yeah.
The Sichos, the Rebbe is laying everything out for you.
Right.
In the Rashi Sichos less maybe, but definitely in the first part of the farbrengen. But by maamorim, it's like almost you can feel that the Rebbe is relying, like this is for a seasoned person that has a background in Yechidus, and
right,
and it sounds like the Rebbe is coming to say like the vart. No, is that makes sense?
Yes. And sometimes it's you have to work hard to figure out what the vart is even. So.
And the later in the mems that became more harder.
Yeah, and the mems it was mamish. Kids and nimur, it's mamish.
Maamorim are short. They're very short.
It's the history of the Yechidus. If you look Yechidus in general, the develop, you can look. Sometimes they did it some maamorim. If you look at maamorim, the way all the Rebbeim, the same maamorim, said the same maamorim, everybody added. So the way, let's say, the Friedrich Rebbe, he repeats everything the one before him said, and then he adds a few questions, right? The Rebbe didn't, in the later years especially, didn't repeat everything that's said. He just repeated a few nekudas, and then he added whatever he added, and that's it. There was no.
So the structure is not so clear. You're saying
but I don't. It's one of these areas that I'm still in the middle of figuring out. That's the truth. It's not like I haven't figured out.
Now maybe you could say that the Rebbe also was saying in Yoni Yechidus in the Sichos.
That may be true.
To me, I don't know if it makes any sense. I'm asking you, but to me it seems like everything was about a maamorim, and it seems by the Rebbe it's a farbrengen. So the Rebbe could, first of all, every time the Rebbe says maamorim, very often the Rebbe started explaining things in the Sicha afterwards about the maamorim. It's one unit. There's a farbrengen. In the farbrengen, the Sicha could have more Yechidus than the maamorim. Whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah, true. What's unique about the maamorim is limited to the structure the way it was established by the previous Rebbeim. So the questions are more or less the same. Even the answers are more or less the same. And the Maamar chazara that he quotes are the same. And it's all within a certain structure. In the Sichos, more free. He just discusses the concept without being limited by the structure of the previous Rebbeim. So it's a different way of saying things. But in the Sichos, is more about certain sugyas. A Maamar is usually connected to a specific dibra masri or concept. It's different. When I get look at the Sichos, later that was Tov Mem Dal, but then Tov Mem Zayin, I got involved because then look at the Sichos started coming out in Hebrew. So then I worked. It's a different type of. I didn't write Sichos. I was one of the editors to edit the Lashon Kodesh.
The Lashon.
The Lashon. But obviously, when I did the Lashon, I also gave. If I had a Hor and Teichen, I also gave one.
Right. I have a question for you. The Rashi Sichos and the Haaretz and the Rebbe's father and the Zayar, all of that. It seems to me also that the Rebbe, almost like the Maamorim, that the Rebbe said it. Like
depends
like
when
it needs to be like this can definitely be elaborated. I'm just telling to
you. Yeah, but the truth is, it's also it was just like with Maamorim. The first 10 years till the Maamorim were quite elaborate.
I'm talking about later years.
Okay, the same thing. The same thing can say about the Rashis. In the first 5-10 years of the Rashis, the Rebbe was much more, he got involved much more. Remember the story he asked Yafi to count the questions. It was more involved. The later years, it was a little less. It was more bekitzer, beremes. You're right. Look at the Vitzak, I'm not sure. Kehos has its own way. And then there was Rambam, but in other words, some of them he looked almost like he says it because it's part of the process. You have to talk about the Rambam. And sometimes he spoke, but like he appeared in the Rambam. It's like an Indian to Mavayr Rambam.
Right, it's like it depends. So you're saying with the years that changed.
Yeah, I think it changed
but
with the years.
The first Sichos,
what?
It looks like to me also, and like in the mems, like the main farbrengen is till the Maamar.
They said when I came here as a Bachar, they always told me the main farbrengen is really before the Maamar. That's what people told me even then.
Even though most of the Torah, quote unquote, is
exactly.
a second part.
Because the farbrengen, that's when the Rebbe spoke about what we say. But the farbrengen is what we call in English inspiring. Not the serious, more like to touch you, to affect, to touch you should be nisayer and should be. Like it says in the Shar of Torah, and look at the Torah, Hashem. It was that type of language was more in the Sichos before the Maamar.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much. Shekayach.